You come home after years away, to the house your father built with his bare hands, to the porch where your mother used to braid your hair, to the street where every neighbor once knew your name. But now your community watches you through cracked blinds, fear replacing familiarity, silence replacing safety. Before you can even unlock your front door, two cops step onto your property. Hands on their guns, eyes full of power, they want you to fear. And within minutes, you're face down on your own porch. Handcuffed, humiliated, treated like a criminal simply because of the color of your skin. They didn't ask your name. They didn't check the deed. They didn't care who you were. But the moment they learn the truth, that the black man they brutalized is the director of the FBI, the entire town falls into a panic, and a war for justice begins. This story will make your blood boil, make your heart ache, and make you rethink everything you believed about the power of one voice against an entire corrupt system. If you're ready to witness what real courage looks like, if you're ready to see how one man exposes the deepest roots of small-town corruption, then stay exactly where you are. And before we dive in, hit that subscribe button to Racist Reality, because the stories we uncover here aren't just entertainment. They're true. They're warnings. It's the reality that so many people still live every day. And you should never miss the next one. The late summer sun hung heavy over Oakwood Crossing, the kind of Louisiana heat that clung to your skin and slowed your heartbeat. The road leading into the neighborhood shimmered like melted glass, and the tall pines lining the street swayed lazily in a breeze too tired to cool anything down. The houses, some freshly painted, some sagging with memory, stood shoulder to shoulder like old friends whispering about a long-forgotten secret. Into this still, burning quiet rolled a black government sedan, its tinted windows catching fractured sunlight. The engine hummed low, unhurried, as if even the car could feel the weight of returning home after too many years gone. When the vehicle stopped in front of a small white house with weather-worn siding and a porch that sagged gently in the middle, the driver's door opened with a push that seemed more emotional than physical. Dr. Marcus Hill, age 52, stepped onto the cracked pavement, polished shoes sinking ever so slightly into loose gravel. He inhaled. Magnolia, damp earth, faint scent of motor oil drifting from the corner shop. It hadn't changed, not in the ways that mattered. His brown trench coat, despite the oppressive heat, draped over him like an old habit, one he couldn't quite let go of. It was part of him, as much as his federal badge tucked away in the inner pocket, as much as the years of discipline in his stance, as much as the memories that rose unbidden the moment he saw the house. The house where his father used to stand on Sunday mornings, reading the paper on the porch. The house where his mother cooked gumbo so rich the scent pulled neighbors in through the screen door. The house he'd left at 18, vowing to make something of himself. Now it stared back at him, chipped paint and sagging gutters and all, as if asking why it took him so long to return. Marcus turned the key in his hand, the same key his mother had given him before he left for college. Back then, it felt symbolic. Now it felt heavy, heavy in a way that hinted the house wasn't the only thing needing repair. He climbed the porch steps. They complained under his weight, groaning like old bones. Curtains in nearby windows shifted. Shadows lingered just long enough for him to notice before disappearing. Eyes watching him, studying him, trying to decide whether he belonged. It shouldn't have mattered. He grew up right here on this very block. But something in the air told him Oakwood Crossing had learned to forget its own children. The door resisted, like it had grown stubborn in his absence. When it finally creaked open, the smell of stale air and dust greeted him. Golden sunlight spilled in behind him, revealing floating motes that glittered like memories suspended in time. He stepped inside. The living room was smaller than he remembered. Funny how childhood stretches the world out like elastic, only for adulthood to shrink it back into its true, cramped shape. The wallpaper his mother once adored had faded into muted yellows and greens. Family photos, in frames that had never been straight, still lined the walls. His parents at their wedding, his father in his mechanic's uniform, his mother laughing on the porch swing, and a teenage Marcus standing between them at his high school graduation. He walked toward that last picture, wiped away the dust with his thumb, let the past press against his chest, warm and aching. "I made it, Mama," he whispered. His voice cracked, though the room was empty. A knock at the screen door startled him. He turned to see Miss Ruth Henderson, age 77, her narrow frame silhouetted by the morning sun. Her silver-streaked hair was tied back with a faded scarf, and her cane tapped the porch in a steady rhythm. "Lord have mercy," she gasped, her mouth twisting into a smile that was both joyous and pained. "If it ain't little Marcus Hill." He opened the screen door and she pulled him into a hug, thin arms surprisingly firm. When she stepped back, she took a long look at him, her expression softening. "You've grown on me," she said, patting his cheek. "And tired. Life has been working you hard, hasn't it?" Marcus chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Something like that." She leaned heavily on her cane, eyes scanning the house behind him. "You finally came home." "Yeah," he said quietly. "It was time." Her smile faded. "These streets, they've changed, baby. Not for the better." He gestured to the porch swing, and they sat. The chains creaked above them, echoing the exhaustion in her sigh. "The new police they brought in," she said, lowering her voice. "They don't know this place. Don't want to. They look at us like we're strangers in our own skin." Marcus studied her face, the lines around her mouth etched deeper than he remembered. "What happened?" Ms. Ruth's voice trembled. "Family's disappearing. Jackson went last month. Said they missed payments. Ain't never missed a payment in their life. Browns before that. Washingtons, one by one." Marcus felt the familiar pull of anger in his gut, the kind he'd learned to hide behind a practiced calm. "How long?" "2 years. Maybe more." She hesitated, eyes darting toward the street. "And folks who speak up? Trouble finds them, real quick." He nodded slowly. The investigator in him was already mapping connections, tracing patterns. The son who grew up here felt something different, something deeper, something like grief. "I appreciate you telling me," he said. Ms. Ruth squeezed his hand. "Just be careful. Oakwood ain't the same. These new officers, they're bold, and they don't answer to anybody." She stood with effort. He moved to help her, but she waved him off. "Hush, I'm old, not broken." Her smile flickered. "You need anything, I'm right next door." When she left, Marcus returned inside and spent the next hour unpacking. He found his father's old coffee maker, a relic from the 90s, cleaned it, and brewed a pot strong enough to jolt him awake. He stepped onto the porch again, mug warming his hands, letting the day settle around him. The early sun spilled crimson across the sky as neighbors jogged past, each speeding up just a little when they saw him. The air was thick with something tense, something unspoken. Then he heard it. Low rumbling engines. 2 police cruisers crawled down the street, slow enough to feel unnatural. Their white paint gleamed under the sun, and the Oakwood Parish emblem glared from their doors. Inside, 2 pairs of eyes locked onto him through the glass, cold, suspicious. Marcus lifted his coffee mug slightly in greeting. The cruisers didn't respond, not with a nod, not with a glance, not even with a flicker of acknowledgement. They simply passed, slow, deliberate, dripping menace. When they turned the corner, the tension didn't leave with them. It clung to the air like humidity. The unease settled into Marcus's bones. He took a sip of his cooling coffee and stared down the street, déjà vu washing over him. Growing up black in Louisiana meant you always knew when law enforcement was looking for trouble, and sometimes they were looking for you to make it easy for them. Only this time, they had no idea who they were staring at. He leaned back in his porch chair, the wooden slats warm beneath him, his eyes fixed on the place where the cruisers had vanished. He had come home to heal, to fix a house full of ghosts, to reclaim a piece of himself he'd left behind. But Oakwood Crossing wasn't offering peace. It was a warning to him. And Marcus Hill, director of the FBI, son of Oakwood, survivor of every obstacle that once tried to bury him, recognized a warning when he heard one. He just hadn't decided yet whether he'd heed it or tear it apart from the inside out. By late morning, the sun was no longer gentle. It pressed down on Oakwood Crossing with a heavy hand, making the air ripple above the asphalt and turning every breath into work. The cicadas had already begun their relentless chorus, that buzzing, rattling hymn that said, "This is the South, and nothing here comes easy." On the front porch of the little white house, Dr. Marcus Hill stood with a damp rag in one hand, a metal polish bottle in the other, and his sleeves rolled just past his elbows. His brown trench coat, for once, hung over the back of a chair. Under the heat, his shirt clung to his back, but he didn't seem to mind. He was focused on something small. The brass house numbers, the ones his father had bought the week they moved in, had grown dull with time. The 1, the 3, the 6 screwed crookedly into the siding, tarnished and half hidden behind grime, looked tired. He worked on them slowly, dragging the rag in careful circles, like he could polish the years off the house itself. His father had installed those numbers the day they got the keys. Marcus could still hear his voice. "We're here now, son. This is ours. Nobody can tell you you don't belong where your name is on the deed." Back then, Marcus believed that. Back then, he hadn't yet learned how often black ownership and black belonging were treated as negotiable. He wiped another layer of grime away. Sunlight caught the brass, and for a moment it gleamed. Behind him, the front door stood open, letting out just enough cooler air to keep the house from suffocating. Inside, cardboard boxes leaned against the walls. His parents' furniture stood where it had always stood, ghosts of a life too busy and too poor to ever be redecorated. He heard the sound before he saw them. Low, throaty engine, tires crunching gravel just a little too slow. A police cruiser rolled to a stop in front of his house. Not the cautious passing drive-by from earlier that morning. This time it stopped, idling, claiming space. Marcus kept polishing a moment longer. He lived his whole life around uniforms. Former local cops, federal agents, Secret Service, military contractors. He'd seen every flavor of authority. He'd learned to read the differences. The car doors opened with sharp, deliberate pops. 2 officers stepped out. Officer Blake Mercer, 34, tall and broad-shouldered, with a buzz cut and a jaw clenched so tight it seemed carved from stone. The kind of face that looked like it had learned to enjoy intimidation. Beside him, Officer Todd Hanley, 27, scanned the house with restless eyes, fingers twitching near his holster. Young, overeager, radiating the anxious energy of someone desperate to prove himself to the wrong mentor. Their mirrored sunglasses reflected Marcus's house back at him, but not his humanity. Marcus stilled his hand. Slowly, he set the polish and rag on the small ledge next to the door. Then he turned. "Morning, officers," he said, voice calm, measured. "Something I can help you with?" Mercer didn't answer with a greeting. His eyes roamed over Marcus's body, noting the rolled sleeves, the work-stiff hands, the sweat at his temples. Then he looked past Marcus, at the house, at the half-open door, at the faded curtains unmoving in the brief breeze. "We got a call," Mercer said. "Suspicious activity at this address." Hanley smirked as the phrase itself amused him. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Suspicious activity?" "Yeah," Hanley gestured vaguely with his chin. "Guy messing with the property. Neighbors weren't sure who he was. Said he just showed up." Behind them across the street, curtains shifted again. Several faces hovered near windows. Someone's hand lifted a phone. The neighborhood was watching. Of course it was. Marcus swallowed the sour taste rising in his mouth. "Well," he said, keeping his voice even, "I'm cleaning my house number." Mercer glanced at the gleaming brass, then back at Marcus, unimpressed. "And this is your house?" Mercer asked, the skepticism dripping off each syllable. "Yes," Marcus answered. "It is." Hanley let out a short laugh. "Your house," he echoed. "Right." Mercer took a step closer, boots scraping against the porch. "Gonna need to see some ID." "That's not a problem," Marcus said. "My wallet's inside. I can get—" "Don't move," Mercer snapped, his hand going straight to his gun. The leather of his holster creaked. Marcus froze. He'd given that command himself, hundreds of times in different circumstances. On raids, during standoffs, in high-stakes operations where weapons were already drawn. He'd never imagined he'd hear it on his own childhood porch for wiping a brass number clean. Across the street, the neighborhood woke up in a new way. Ms. Ruth's door opened. A young mother pulled her toddler close. More phones appeared. Mercer's voice sharpened. "Hands where I can see them, now." Marcus raised his hands slowly, palms open in that posture every black person in America knows by muscle memory. My wallet is in my inner coat pocket, he said calmly. I'm going to reach for it very slowly. I said don't move, Mercer barked. You hard of hearing? Hanley circled slightly to the side, trying to get behind Marcus. The choreography was familiar. Flanking, boxing in, reducing options. Marcus kept his voice low. Officers, I'll gladly show you my ID. I just need to... We don't need you to tell us what we need, Hanley interrupted, smirk gone, impatience rising. We gave you a directive. The word directive hit Marcus like a bitter joke. He hesitated just long enough for Mercer to decide he'd had enough. Turn around, Mercer ordered. Hands behind your back. Marcus stared at him. The rag on the ledge still glistened with polish. The number 136 glowed faintly, sunlight catching on the edges. This is my property, Marcus said. Not loud, not aggressive, just firm. I'm not trespassing. I'm not a threat. I'll show you my ID and we can settle this like... Mercer lunged. He grabbed Marcus's arm and slammed him into the wall so hard the chipped siding bit into his cheek. A sharp trail of pain tore through his face. The impact rattled his teeth. The world narrowed to the smell of old paint and sweat and sudden violence. Across the street, someone gasped. Another voice shouted, "We're recording!" "Stop resisting!" Mercer yelled, though Marcus hadn't budged except where Mercer had thrown him. "I am not resisting," Marcus managed between gritted teeth. "I'm..." The cold bite of metal clamped around his wrists. Mercer ratcheted the cuffs tighter than necessary, chain digging into the soft skin between bone and tendon. "Sir, those are too tight," Marcus said. His voice stayed steady, but his heart hammered in his chest. He'd seen wrists crushed like this. Hands go numb. Blood flow is cut off. Hanley patted him down roughly, hands pressing into ribs, hip, and ankles. "You know the drill," Hanley muttered. "You act like you're new to this." Marcus swallowed hard. He wasn't new to men like this. He was new to being on this side of their hands. The door next door creaked open. Ms. Ruth Henderson stepped onto her porch, one hand gripping her cane, the other waving her phone. "Hey!" she shouted, voice shaking, but loud enough to cut through everything. "You get your hands off him. That's Marcus Hill. That's his mama's house." Mercer didn't even glance at her. "Ma'am, go back inside," he called out, "for your own safety." "Safety?" she breathed. "I've been safe on this street longer than you've been alive." Another neighbor shouted, "We know him. Y'all wrong for this." "Everybody back in your homes," Hanley yelled, moving his hand to his weapon like it was punctuation. "This is police business. You want to go to jail too?" Ms. Ruth didn't move. She lifted her phone higher. The cuffs dug deeper as Mercer yanked Marcus away from the wall and propelled him toward the steps. Marcus stumbled but stayed on his feet, fighting to keep his dignity even as his face burned and his hands throbbed. He could feel eyes on him from every angle. Neighbors he'd played football with in the street. Kids who'd grown up hearing his mother brag that her boy runs the FBI now. Elders who'd watched him leave with nothing but a suitcase and hope. Now they watched him being shoved into the back of a patrol car like his existence was a crime. "You're making a serious mistake," Marcus said quietly, catching Mercer's eyes in the reflection of the cruiser window. "Shut your mouth," Mercer replied, slamming the door. "You can talk downtown." The car pulled away. Ms. Ruth's voice followed, breaking on the hot air. "We're calling everybody. You hear me? Everybody." Hanley stuck his arm out the window. "Last warning. Anyone who interferes, anyone who posts something wrong, obstruction charges. Don't test us." The houses began to shrink in the rear window, the block of his entire childhood slipping away as if he were 14 again, leaving for good. Only this time, he was leaving in handcuffs. The Oakwood Parish Police Department looked smaller than the federal buildings Marcus was used to, but somehow more oppressive. It was a one-story brick block, windows dirty, flag snapping half-heartedly in the blazing sun. When Mercer yanked open the back door and hauled him out, Marcus straightened his spine. The metal around his wrist cut deeper, but he refused to hunch. Inside, fluorescent lights bleached the world, humming loudly overhead. The floors were scuffed linoleum, the kind that never quite looks clean. The air smelled of sweat, coffee gone stale, and burned dust from old vents. A few officers glanced up from their desks as Mercer shoved Marcus forward. "Look what we found trespassing on Maple," Hanley announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. Thought he could just stroll right onto someone else's property and start making himself at home. Marcus bit back a bitter laugh. Maple. They couldn't even get the street right. A booking sergeant, heavy set, with yellowed teeth and a badge that had seen more years than his conscience, sat behind the front desk, flipping through paperwork. "Name?" he asked without looking up. "Dr. Marcus Hill," Marcus replied, "and I'd like to contact my attorney." Mercer snorted. "Hear that? Big man wants his lawyer." Hanley leaned in to the sergeant. Guy was getting aggressive on a porch that didn't belong to him. Refused commands. Could be some kind of scammer. The sergeant finally looked up. His eyes flicked over Marcus's cuffed hands, his shirt, the drying smear of blood on his cheek. "You're always this demanding when you're caught breaking and entering?" the sergeant drawled. "I wasn't breaking and entering," Marcus said, voice firm. "I was cleaning the house number on my own home. Your officers have failed to read me my rights, and my request for a phone call still stands." The room's noise dimmed just a little. People didn't usually say those words here. Not in that tone. Hanley grabbed a clipboard and began to write, fast and messy. "Suspect was hostile during encounter," he muttered as he scribbled. "Refused to comply. Made suspicious movements. Smelled like, what? Trouble?" "That's not what happened," Marcus said, jaw tightening. "You're falsifying that report." Hanley didn't look up. "Relax, Professor. No one cares." Marcus inhaled slowly. A lifetime of training, of briefings, of interrogations, of controlling rooms with a word. None of that mattered here, because the only thing anyone saw was a black man in cuffs. "Chief in?" Mercer asked the room. A door slammed somewhere in the back, and a voice answered before anyone else could. "Right here." Chief Carl Monroe emerged from his office, his bulk straining the buttons of his uniform. His gray hair was cut in an attempt at sharpness, but softened into something sloppy. His face was mottled with either heat or constant anger. It was hard to tell which. "What's going on?" Monroe asked, looking from Mercer to Marcus. "Caught this one trespassing on a nice house over in Oakwood Crossing," Mercer said, puffing himself up. "Started quoting the law at us. Real mouthy. Figured we'd bring him in, teach him some respect." Monroe walked slowly around Marcus, assessing him like livestock. "Oakwood Crossing, huh?" he said. "That neighborhood's been having issues. A lot of people think they own more than they really do." Marcus met his gaze. "Chief Monroe, is it? I'm still waiting for my phone call." And I couldn't help but notice that Officer Mercer's body camera is switched off. "That's a direct violation of your department's policy. Section 7.2, paragraph 4, if I'm not mistaken." A flicker crossed Monroe's face. He glanced at Mercer's chest, where a black, square camera sat dark. "Technical malfunction," Mercer said quickly. "Battery died during the call." "Seems to happen a lot in departments like this," Marcus replied. The booking sergeant cleared his throat. "You know a lot about our policies, Doc. You some kind of lawyer?" "No," Marcus said. "I just make it my business to know how the law is supposed to work, especially in places where it tends not to." Monroe's lip curled. "Well, around here we enforce the law. Folks who come into our parish thinking they can talk back usually regret it." Marcus fought the urge to smile, not because anything about this was funny, but because he'd heard that line before, in different accents, different uniforms, different decades. "With all due respect, Chief," he said, "I won't be regretting anything today, but some of your officers might." Monroe's eyes hardened. "Get him his phone call," he snapped at the sergeant. "Then put him in holding. He can cool off while we figure out what to charge him with." Mercer dragged Marcus toward a grimy phone mounted on the wall. The cord had been twisted so many times that it looked like it wanted to detach itself and leave. Marcus dialed a number from memory. It rang once, twice. A clipped, professional voice answered. "Office of the FBI Director." "Put me through to Deputy Director Sarah Chen," Marcus said. "Tell her it's Marcus." There was no hold music, just a beat of silence. "Director Hill?" Sarah's voice came through, controlled but edged with concern. "Where are you?" "Being processed at Oakwood Parish PD," he replied evenly. "Local officers arrested me on my own porch. I'm fine for now, but I think you'll want to make a few calls." The line went quiet. Then, understood. Stay put. We'll handle it. He hung up gently, turned back to Mercer and Hanley. Shall we proceed? Marcus asked. Or do you want to wait until your phones start ringing? Mercer shoved him toward a holding cell. The bars rattled as they shut him in. Enjoy the hospitality, Mercer sneered. You won't be so cocky after a night in there. Marcus sat on the cold bench, back straight, hands still cuffed. He closed his eyes for a moment, counted his breaths, slowed his heart. In the familiar hum of fear and anger, he began to catalog. No Miranda rights read. Body camera off. Ahorn. Wrong address on the arrest form. Excessive use of force in front of multiple civilian witnesses. Every violation was a thread, and he was very good at pulling threads. Time crawled. He could hear Mercer and Hanley chuckling outside, swapping exaggerated versions of what had happened. Big city con man, Mercer said. Thought he could intimidate us with his fancy talk. Don't worry, Hanley replied. Chief will make sure he doesn't forget this place. Then the phone rang. Once. Twice. Monroe picked up, his voice booming as usual. Oakwood Parish PD, Chief Monroe speaking? The room grew quieter as he continued. Yes, this is he. Who? The deputy. Someone turned down the radio. Another officer stopped typing. Yes, ma'am. We had no idea. Monroe's voice began to tremble. Yes, I understand, ma'am. Of course, right away. He hung up slowly as if the phone weighed more now. Two other lines blinked almost immediately. The State Attorney General's office, a federal liaison. Voices from a level Monroe wasn't used to being scolded by. He answered one, his face draining of color. Yes, Attorney General. I can explain. No, sir. Yes, sir. We'll cooperate fully. The entire station watched as their chief, normally the loudest, most invincible presence, shrank inch by inch with every word. Monroe finally slammed the phone down, sweat glistening on his forehead. His gaze drifted toward the holding cell, toward Marcus. He fumbled with his keys and walked over, his steps less sure than before. The cell door squealed open. Dr. Hill, he said, the title catching awkwardly in his throat. If you'll step into my office, please. Marcus rose slowly. He didn't smirk. He didn't gloat. But he let a small, knowing calm settle onto his face as he walked past Mercer and Hanley. Their earlier smugness had vanished, replaced with tight jaws and widened eyes. In Monroe's office, the walls were lined with plaques, commendations, photos of him with local judges, the mayor, a senator or two. The trappings of small-town power. Behind the desk, a phone still blinked with missed calls. A voice boomed from the speaker of another line already engaged, a voice Marcus knew well. Chief Monroe, came the firm, clipped tone of Deputy Director Sarah Chen, carried through on speaker. You illegally detained and assaulted the director of the FBI on his own property. Do you understand the seriousness of what you've done? Monroe swallowed. We had no way of knowing who he was, he stammered. He refused commands and... Your officers don't have the right to brutalize citizens, Sarah cut in. But since you seem more worried about rank than humanity, let's be clear. You laid hands on the highest-ranking law enforcement officer in the nation, on camera, in front of witnesses, without cause. On another line, the State Attorney General's voice chimed in, icy and furious. We will be sending a team to review all body cam footage, arrest records, and use of force complaints from your department, Chief. And you better hope this is the first and only time something like this has happened. Monroe's eyes kept flicking between the speaker and Marcus's face, as if trying to reconcile the man in front of him with the rank he'd ignored. He had known black men were disposable. He had not imagined a black man could break his entire career. I apologize, Director Hill, Monroe managed, the words tasting like acid. It was a misunderstanding. No, Marcus said calmly. It was a pattern. Silence. Marcus stood. I'll need my personal effects returned, he continued, and a ride back to my home. I believe the state police will be handling that. As if on cue, a state trooper appeared at the office door, his uniform immaculate, his posture rigid. Director Hill, he said with a respectful nod. Trooper Williams, I've been assigned to escort you wherever you need to go. Marcus turned to Monroe. I'd also strongly suggest you start preparing for federal oversight. This was not an isolated incident. And the people you've been stepping on? He nodded toward the window, toward Oakwood Crossing beyond. They're about to get very loud. He left the chief standing in his own office, surrounded by framed reminders of power that no longer meant what they used to. On the ride back, the state trooper's cruiser moved smoothly through the streets, the sun now starting its slow descent. The light was softer now, but it didn't soften the looks they got as they passed. When they turned onto Marcus's block, people were already outside. Word travels fast in places like Oakwood Crossing. Ms. Ruth stood on her porch, hand on her hip, phone still in the other. A small army of neighbors clustered behind and around her. Young men, old women, kids clutching juice boxes, teens with braids and headphones. Every shade of black, every story tied to this street. The cruiser rolled to a stop in front of the White House with the newly shining brass numbers. Trooper Williams got out first, then walked around to open Marcus's door. Not rough, not hurried, just respectfully. The neighborhood watched with eyes wide and unblinking. Marcus stepped out. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Ms. Ruth's voice rang out, cracked but strong. "I told y'all," she cried, pointing at him with a trembling finger. "You see, that's Director Hill, the head of the FBI, and they put their hands on him like he was nothing." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Shock, anger, something else too, something like vindication. "Director?" someone whispered. "For real?" Trooper Williams confirmed it with a nod. "Yes, ma'am, this is Director Marcus Hill, and what happened to him today is under federal review." Phones rose again, this time not just to record harm, but to capture possibility. Marcus stood on his porch, the cuffs removed, but the imprint still burning his wrists. The bruise on his cheek throbbed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He looked at the people in front of him. His people. The old man who used to play dominoes with his father on the sidewalk. The kids who now ran where he once ran. The mothers whose fear had been their daily companion for as long as they could remember. He met their eyes. Some lifted their chins. Others looked away, as if afraid hope might be snatched from them if they held it too long. "They messed with the wrong one this time," Ms. Ruth said, voice shaking with fury and pride. "Y'all see that, don't you?" A low murmur of agreement followed. Marcus didn't give a speech. Not yet. There would be time for that. For now, he just let himself stand there, a man who had spent his career fighting injustice around the country, realizing that the ugliest battle might be right here on the street that raised him. He closed his eyes for a brief second, feeling the heat, the bruises, the eyes on him. He'd come back to Oakwood Crossing to fix up an old house. Instead, he had walked straight into a war his people had been losing quietly for years. And now the rules had changed. Night in Oakwood Crossing settled heavy and humid, the kind of southern darkness that felt alive, restless, watching. The porch light cast a warm circle on the steps, but a few feet beyond that, the shadows thickened into something deeper, something that seemed to breathe. Inside the house, Dr. Marcus Hill moved slowly through the rooms, the ache in his wrists still sharp, his ribs stiff from being slammed against his childhood home. Each step reminded him that the body remembers violence long after the moment has passed. He had tried to sleep. He had tried to close his eyes and let the rhythm of the house settle him. Creaks, he knew, distant whistles of wind that had not changed since he was a boy. The soft hum of the old refrigerator that still worked despite being older than most of the officers who'd arrested him. But rest refused him, slipping through his fingers every time he tried to grasp it. The clock in the hallway struck midnight. The sound reverberated through the quiet house like a warning. Marcus sat up. Something was wrong. The air was too still, too cold. A faint, almost imperceptible draft brushed against his skin, and the hairs on his arms stood up. All the windows were closed. He remembered that clearly. Moving silently, he passed through the living room. His father's recliner sat in its familiar corner. The blanket his mother knitted years ago folded neatly on top. Family photos stared back at him from the walls. His graduation, his parents' wedding, a picture of him at 8 holding a fishing pole twice his size. These memories should have felt comforting. Tonight, they felt like witnesses. Marcus reached for the light switch. His breath caught in his throat. The living room was destroyed. Papers strewn across the floor, photo albums torn apart, drawers pulled from their housings and emptied. His mother's antique vase, the one she'd treasured since her wedding day, lay shattered like bone fragments across the rug. Someone hadn't just been searching. They had been sending a message. A chill raced down his spine, settling into his bones. His training kicked in. The automatic scanning of exits, shadows, entry points. The back window's lock was jimmied open, scraped metal glinting like a silent confession. He crouched, checking the floor, noting the patterns. The intruder had moved methodically, not chaotically. They'd known what they were looking for, knew where to step, knew how to move without leaving a clear trace. This wasn't a burglary, it was reconnaissance, a threat. His gaze landed on the coffee table. Weighted under a broken picture frame lay a piece of paper. Thick black marker carved the message into it, shaky but forceful, like someone writing with adrenaline in their blood. Leave, or else. Marcus exhaled, not fear. Resolve. He took photos of everything, methodically, as if documenting a crime scene at work. Then he bent to gather some papers that had blown under the couch. Something metallic glinted. He reached under, fingers brushing cold metal. When he pulled it out, his breath stilled. A listening device. Small, black, sophisticated. A tiny blinking light pulsing like a heartbeat. They hadn't just searched. They were listening, tracking, recording. Before he could react further, the glass exploded inward, sharp shards slicing through the air. A brick slammed into the floor inches from where he knelt, bouncing once before rolling to a stop. The front window was now a jagged mouth of broken glass. Marcus hit the floor instinctively, rolling behind the couch, heart pounding, but mind clear. Through the shattered window, he glimpsed a shadow, a figure in dark clothing darting across the yard. Quick, small, familiar with their practiced retreat. Not tonight, Marcus muttered. He launched himself toward the front door, his feet barely touching the hardwood. Pain shot through his ribs, but adrenaline drowned it out. His shoes hit the porch steps, then the grass, chasing the shadow, slipping through the darkness. The masked figure sprinted across Ms. Ruth Henderson's yard. They reached her fence, vaulted over with practiced ease. Marcus followed, his longer stride closing the distance. He reached for the intruder's jacket, fingertips grazing fabric. But they dropped low, rolled, then disappeared into a cluster of bushes, swallowed by the shadows. Lights flicked on in the neighboring house. Ms. Ruth's voice cracked through the air. "Marcus! Marcus, baby, you all right? I'm calling the police." "Stay inside," Marcus shouted, scanning the yard. "Don't come outside, Ms. Ruth." Sirens wailed in the distance, the sound slicing through the night. But instead of relief, the sound filled Marcus with dread. He knew who would answer that call. The same men who'd put him in cuffs hours ago. The same department that wanted him gone. The same system that had roots deeper than anyone imagined. He stood in the grass, chest heaving, eyes on every shadow. And he wasn't wrong. Within minutes, headlights swept across the street as a cruiser rolled to a stop. This time, two different officers stepped out. Officer Kevin Parker and Officer Miguel Ortiz, the parish's night patrol. They approached slowly, too slowly. Their faces didn't show concern. They showed amusement. Parker lifted his flashlight and pointed it straight into Marcus's eyes. "Well, well," Parker drawled. "Having trouble settling in, Director?" Marcus forced his posture straight. "My home was broken into. I need a forensic team. Someone left a threat. There's a listening device." Ortiz snorted, shaking his head. "Probably some kids. Happens." "No," Marcus said sharply. "This was professional. Someone planted surveillance equipment inside my—" "Relax," Parker interrupted, shining the beam over the broken window without stepping forward. "Probably just local teens messing with the new guy. You know how they get." Marcus stared at them. These men weren't incompetent. They were complicit. Before he could respond, a car door slammed behind them. Councilwoman Angela Rhodes stepped into the yard, her face pale, eyes wide with fear and fury. She had known Marcus in high school. Angela Sanders back then, all passion and stubbornness. Now she had become one of the only honest officials Oakwood Crossing had left. "Officers," she said sharply, "I trust you're conducting a real investigation here?" The men stiffened. "Yes, ma'am," Ortiz replied quickly. "Just finishing up. Nothing to see." Angela stepped closer to Marcus. "Inside," she whispered urgently. "Now!" The living room still smelled of dust and broken memories. Glass crunched underfoot as Angela walked through, surveying the destruction with a grim face. "This isn't random," she said. "This isn't kids. This is coordinated." Marcus nodded. "There's more." He reached into his pocket and placed the bug on the table. Angela's breath caught. "Is that professional grade? Someone's listening." She closed her eyes briefly, as if the realization physically hurt. Then she reached into her blazer and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "Marcus," she whispered, "you need to see this." He unfolded it carefully. The list inside was typed, clean, silent. Names filled the page. Dozens. At the top, Hill, Marcus, priority. A thick red X slashed across his name. His stomach tightened. His pulse thudded behind his ears. "What is this?" he asked. Angela lowered her voice. "A leak from City Hall. A staffer brought it to me. Marcus, everyone on this list challenged the corruption here." She pointed to the names one by one. "Some disappeared. Some were arrested on bogus charges. Some had accidents. Others moved away after threats." Her voice cracked. "My name is on page 2. Marcus scanned the paper, dread coiling tight in his chest. He saw homeowners who refused to sell, activists who filed complaints, families who spoke out, residents who simply asked too many questions. Every name had a mark beside it. Every mark meant danger. Angela laid a trembling hand on the table. "They're not scared of most people. They're scared of power, of exposure, and you." She swallowed hard. "You humiliated them today." Marcus closed the list and set it down. His voice stayed steady, but the fire behind it burned. "They broke into my home. They planted a bug. They threw a brick through my window." Angela met his gaze. "You need to leave town," she whispered. "Tonight. They will escalate. They always do." Marcus shook his head. "And leave everyone else here to face this alone? Absolutely not." She stepped closer, gripping his forearm. "Marcus, they almost killed people over far less. They have police, judges, developers, elected officials, banks. Every layer of this system works for them. Then we tear the system apart," Marcus said quietly. Angela stared at him, equal parts admiration and fear. "You're going to get yourself killed." Marcus looked at the ruins of his living room, the torn photos, the smashed memories, the threat written in marker, the device blinking slowly like a pulse. He exhaled slowly. "Maybe," he said, "but not before I make damn sure Oakwood Crossing fights back." Outside, the wind rustled the broken curtains. A car rolled slowly past, headlights lingering too long. Marcus watched it disappear. Angela followed his gaze. "They're watching," she whispered. "I know," Marcus said softly. "Let them." He moved to the table, picked up the listening device, and clicked it off. "I want them to hear the silence before the storm." Angela nodded once. "You're not alone in this. And I promise you, Marcus, Oakwood Crossing isn't done fighting." The night pressed in around them, heavy with danger. But for the first time since coming home, Marcus felt something stronger than fear rise in his chest. Determination. The laundromat beneath Corey Johnson's apartment hummed with an unrelenting metallic throb, the tumbling dryers vibrating through the thin floorboards like a restless heartbeat. The smell of detergent drifted upward through the vents, mixing with the stale scent of old carpet and cold coffee that clung to the small living space. Dr. Marcus Hill paced the worn linoleum of the living room, his brown trench coat brushing softly against his legs. The night air from the cracked window was thick and hot, unable to push away the suffocating tension pressing in on all three of them. Corey stood beside his cluttered desk, papers scattered, 2 laptops open, sticky notes arranged like frantic constellations around newspaper clippings on the wall. His hands trembled as he typed, though he tried to hide it. The overhead bulb flickered occasionally, giving his outline a pulsing, anxious halo. Anita Rhodes sat on the sagging couch, her fingers moving quickly as she flipped through the photos she'd taken earlier. Her face was pale with exhaustion, her usually polished blazer rumpled, her eyes tired but blazing with purpose. "We don't have much time," Anita whispered, sliding another photo across the coffee table. "The property transfers, the tax reassessments, the forged signatures, it all connects back to the same cluster of officials. And the same officers," Corey added, voice tight. "Look at this." He turned his laptop toward Marcus. "I've been mapping case after case, dozens of families pushed out, always right before land development deals, always signed by the same judge, always carried out by the same officers." Marcus leaned over the screen, jaw tightening. "This is a systematic operation, calculated, coordinated." Anita nodded, fear flickering behind her determination. "They've been doing it for years, maybe decades." The room vibrated again as a heavy dryer below shifted loads. It almost disguised the sound of Marcus's phone buzzing. Almost. He looked down. "Ms. Ruth Henderson," he picked up immediately. "Marcus," her voice trembled with urgency. "Baby, you listen to me carefully." Marcus straightened. "Ms. Ruth, what's wrong?" she whispered, barely audible. "You got a snake in your garden." A cold shiver ran up his spine. "A what?" "Somebody close. Somebody is acting friendly. They ain't who they pretend to be." His mind raced. Angela? Corey? Anita? No. No. Not them. Not after everything they'd risked. "Who?" Marcus asked, voice low. "I can't say. They listening. They are always listening. Just be careful, you hear me?" The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone. Before he could relay the warning, heavy footsteps thundered up the apartment's exterior stairs. Corey's eyes went wide. "Oh no!" Marcus turned his head sharply, listening. Heavy boots, multiple pairs, moving with purpose, not hesitation. "Police!" a voice boomed outside. "Open up!" Anita's breath caught. "God, they found us!" Marcus moved toward the back of the apartment. "Corey, is there another exit?" "Just the fire escape through the kitchen," Corey whispered. "But if they're coming up the stairs, they're blocking it." The front door rattled violently. "Police, open the door now." Corey's breathing sped up. "We didn't do anything wrong. We only looked at public records." Marcus held up a hand. "Stay calm. Don't run. Running will get you killed." The door splintered as a battering ram punched through the lock. The force shoved the door open violently, wood cracking like bone. Officers flooded inside. 8 of them, armed, face grim, weapons drawn. Marcus immediately lifted his hands, slow and high, his mind calculating every angle, every gun barrel, every twitch. "Everybody on the ground!" Officer Mercer's voice thundered through the room. "Now!" Corey froze in fear. Anita stood slowly, hands visible. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. Officer Hanley smirked as he spread out, eyes gleaming with triumph. "We have a search warrant for stolen county property." "That's absurd," Anita snapped. "We viewed public documents." "You stole confidential materials," Mercer said. "That's enough for jail time." Officers rushed in like wolves, tearing the apartment apart. One flipped the couch, sending Anita's papers flying. Another swept an arm across the desk, knocking both laptops to the floor. The screens cracked instantly, spiderwebbing in jagged white fractures. "Hey!" Corey cried, taking a desperate step forward. Hanley lunged, slamming him into the wall. Corey's head smacked the plaster with a dull thud, and he crumpled to his knees. "Resisting arrest?" Hanley sneered. "That'll add another charge." Marcus stepped forward. "Officer!" Mercer swung his weapon toward him. "Try it, big man. Give me a reason," Mercer hissed. Marcus steadied his breath. His pulse pounded in his ears. "Your actions are unconstitutional," Marcus said calmly. "This is harassment, illegal destruction of property, excessive—" "Shut up," Mercer snapped. "We know who you are now." His smile twisted. "And we know what'll shut you up." An officer rummaging through Corey's thing suddenly held something up. A USB drive. Corey's face fell. "Please, no, don't." Hanley snatched it and pocketed it casually. "Evidence," he said, tapping his chest smugly. For our investigation. You mean you're stealing it? Anita said coldly. No, Mercer countered. We're confiscating it. A phone buzzed. Not Marcus's, not Corey's, Anita's. She looked down, and her face drained of all color. A photo, her teenage son, standing in what looked like a convenience store, hands in his pockets, timestamp matching a recent robbery. Marcus saw the terror in her eyes. Anita, he whispered. Another photo arrived, then another, then another. Different angles, different stores, different crimes. And in every single one, her son had been digitally placed in the frame. She didn't need to say it. The police had fabricated evidence. They wanted something. They wanted her silence. Hanley leaned down, whispering in her ear, just loud enough for Marcus to hear. Back off, or your boy goes to juvie for a long, long time. Anita's hands shook so violently that the phone nearly slipped from her grasp. Marcus's heart twisted painfully. He gave her a small, subtle shake of his head. Don't react. Not here. Not while guns are pointed at them. Mercer straightened. Corey Johnson, he announced, emphasizing each word as if savoring them. You are under arrest for theft of county records, interference with an investigation, and resisting arrest. That's not what happened, Marcus said sharply. He stood still. Shut up, Mercer said again, motioning with his weapon. Or I'll add obstruction. Two officers yanked Corey up, pulling his wrist behind his back. The cuffs snapped shut with brutal force, making him wince in pain. You're hurting him, Anita cried. That's the idea, Hanley said coldly. They dragged Corey through the doorway, his feet stumbling on the stairs. Marcus glimpsed his face, fearful, dazed, but still burning with defiance. Down in the street, neighbors gathered, faces illuminated by the flashing police lights. Phones were raised, but officers shouted at them to step back. Corey's notepad fell from his pocket. An officer stepped on it, grinding it into the pavement with the heel of his boot. Marcus's stomach twisted. They were destroying not just evidence, but hope. Inside the apartment, silence sank over what remained. The air tasted like fear, dust, and broken resolve. Anita stood trembling, hands still clenched around her phone. Her son's face glowed on the cracked screen, frozen in that artificially staged pose. Marcus placed a steady hand on her shoulder. He'll be okay, Marcus murmured, though even he wasn't sure. We'll prove the photos are fake. We'll fix this. Anita pressed her lips together, fighting tears. They're coming after our children now, she whispered. Marcus, they're willing to ruin a black boy's life just to scare me into silence. They always have been, Marcus said quietly. But this time, we're not letting them get away with it. The apartment was wrecked, furniture broken, files scattered, screens shattered, hopes crushed into dust under boot prints. But something caught Marcus's attention. A floorboard near the desk, slightly raised where the officers had flipped the furniture. He knelt, ignoring the flare of pain in his ribs. With 2 fingers, he pried it up. A small cavity sat beneath. Inside, Corey's backup drive, wrapped in a plastic bag. Untouched. Missed. A single spark in the ashes. Marcus closed the floorboard gently and rose. We still have a chance, he said. But before Anita could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't open it. She didn't need to. Her face said everything. Another threat. Another warning. Another reminder that they were being watched. Marcus looked at the shattered apartment, the blinking police lights outside, the lingering smell of fear. We can't stay here, he said. It's not safe. Where do we go? Anita whispered. Marcus exhaled slowly. To the one place corruption fears most. Anita blinked. Where? City Hall, Marcus said quietly. And we're not sneaking. Her eyes widened. You're going to expose them publicly. Yes, he said. We go loud. So loud the entire state hears us. But they'll come after you, she whispered. Marcus stepped toward the window, watching the police car disappear into the night with Corey inside. They already have, he murmured, and they failed. His hand tightened into a fist. Now it's our turn. Night settled over Oakwood Crossing like a warning. The shadows were thicker than usual, stretching long and thin across cracked sidewalks and sagging porches. Even the cicadas seemed quieter, as if the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. Dr. Marcus Hill walked with careful steps, the faint ache in his ribs and the tightening in his left arm, reminding him of the fight he'd taken earlier that day, one that had left bruises he hadn't even checked yet. His trench coat swayed behind him as he moved beneath the yellow streetlights, each pool of light briefly illuminating the exhaustion on his face. He looked like a man carrying an entire community on his shoulders. He was. His phone buzzed. A message from Anita Rhodes. "Be careful. They're desperate now." Marcus stared at those 6 words, knowing she was right. He typed back, "You too. Lock your doors." He put the phone away with a sigh, just as headlights flared in his rearview mirror. Bright, blinding, closer than they should have been. A black SUV sped up behind him. Fast. Too fast. Marcus stiffened. "Not tonight," he whispered. But the SUV surged forward, engine roaring like an animal. Before he could react, the SUV rammed him from behind. The impact slammed him forward into the steering wheel. His seatbelt jerked sharply across his chest, driving the breath from his lungs. His car fishtailed dangerously. Tires squealed. The world tilted. Marcus gripped the wheel, fighting to steady the vehicle. Come on! Come on!" The SUV hit him again, harder. His car spun, skidding sideways into the opposite lane. The headlights of a distant vehicle flashed across his windshield before disappearing behind the bend. "No," Marcus muttered through clenched teeth. "You're not killing me on my own street." He slammed his palm against the gas pedal, the engine whining as he accelerated, trying to outrun whatever was behind him. But the SUV followed, matching his speed, waiting. Then it pulled up alongside him. Dark-tinted windows rolled down. Inside, masked men. Marcus didn't need more than a glimpse to understand. This wasn't intimidation. It was an execution attempt. Metal glinted. Guns. "Move!" Marcus hissed, yanking the steering wheel as bullets tore through the glass. The driver's window exploded, raining shards across his face. A bullet grazed his arm, hot, burning, searing his skin. He bit down on a shout, jerking the car sharply into a narrow street between 2 houses. His car hit a curb. The airbags deployed in a suffocating white burst, the burning smell of chemicals filling the air. Marcus ripped at the deflating airbag and forced the door open, throwing himself toward the ground as more bullets cracked through the night. He rolled instinctively behind a parked car. He could hear the SUV screech to a stop. Doors slammed. Footsteps. 3, maybe 4. "Get him!" a voice barked. "Bring proof!" Marcus breathed through the pain radiating from his arm. His vision swam from the adrenaline. He wasn't fighting for his life. He was fighting for the lives of everyone depending on him, and he refused to die a quiet death in a dark alley. He dashed across the yard of a house he knew well, the Browns' old place, vaulting over a low fence. His shoes skidded on wet grass, but he kept moving. Behind him, the men shouted, their footsteps crashing through bushes and broken fences. Marcus reached the next yard. A dog barked. Lights flicked on. A porch door cracked open. "Who's out there?" a voice called nervously. Marcus ducked behind a tree, gasping for breath. "Stay inside," he yelled. "Call the police." But even as the words left his mouth, he knew the police wouldn't come for him. Not to help. A bullet splintered the bark near his head. Marcus sprinted again, toward a shed behind Mrs. Walker's house. He remembered hiding there as a kid during hide-and-seek. He hoped it still had the same loose panel near the back. He reached the shed, gripped the old wooden handle, and pulled. Locked. Damn. He braced one foot on the lower frame and kicked just below the latch. The wood cracked. Another kick. It splintered enough to shove open. He slipped inside, closed the door behind him, and pressed his back to the cool wall. The shed was small, smelling of fertilizer and dust. Lawn tools hung from rusting hooks. A lawnmower sat in the corner, its gas can beside it. Marcus crouched low and reached for his phone despite his trembling fingers. The screen was cracked, faint blood smeared across it, but it still worked. He typed the 4-digit emergency code known only to the FBI's top ranks, one that triggered an immediate high-level alert. As he pressed send, a flashlight beam sliced through the gaps in the shed walls. "Check the shed." Marcus held his breath. Footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. Outside, a dog barked wildly. Voices shouted back. "The police! They're coming from both ends! Move! Get back to the car!" The footsteps retreated, tires screeched, an engine revved violently, then faded into the distance. Marcus stayed crouched, eyes fixed on the slivers of light through the wood. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer, growing louder, drowning the pounding of his heart. Then, the shed door swung open. Blue and red lights flooded the interior. Several local officers stepped inside, guns drawn. Marcus blinked. He didn't know if they were here to save him or finish the job. His knees buckled. Darkness edged his vision. He collapsed. Light, white, cold, harsh. The world returned to Marcus in fragments. The steady beep of a heart monitor, the sterile smell of antiseptic, the burn in his left arm under thick bandages. His right wrist felt heavy. He looked down, handcuffed, to a hospital bed. His pulse spiked. A monitor beeped faster. Through the window, reporters crowded outside like hungry wolves. Camera flashes burst against the glass. Microphones bobbed. News vans lined the parking lot. A helicopter hovered overhead. "Welcome back," a quiet voice murmured. Marcus turned his head. Anita Rhodes sat beside him, exhaustion etched into her face. She reached for a cup of water and held the straw to his lips. He took a sip, his throat painfully dry. "How long?" "2 days," she whispered. "You lost a lot of blood." His eyes burned. "The SUV, the men—" "We know," Anita said. "They tried to kill you, Marcus." He swallowed hard. "And they handcuffed me?" Anita nodded bitterly. "The mayor ordered it. They're trying to spin a narrative, smear you as violent, claim you faked being attacked. They're calling you a danger to the community." Marcus closed his eyes, exhaling shakily. "What about Corey?" he asked. Anita's jaw tightened. "Still in jail. They ransacked his place again." Marcus cursed under his breath. "And your son?" he whispered. She looked away, swallowing back tears. "They sent more photos, worse ones. They're trying to frame him for breaking into the high school." "My God." "There's more," Anita said. "While you were unconscious, we gathered evidence. A clerk confessed. A developer slipped up in a recorded call. 2 police officers came forward. They're terrified, but they're ready to turn on the chief." She slid her hand subtly beneath Marcus's pillow. He felt a small, hard object. A voice recorder. "It has everything," she whispered. Their voices, their plans, their threats, the conspiracy in their own words. Marcus held it beneath the blanket. "They'll try to stop us." "They already did," Anita said. "But they failed." Outside, the reporters grew louder. The crowd swelled. Signs lifted above their heads. People chanted, "Justice for Oakwood! We believe Marcus Hill! Bring down the corruption!" Anita stood, her eyes fierce. "Marcus, this is your moment." 1 hour later, the hospital room was transformed. Camera crews crowded inside, microphones angled toward Marcus. Every major news network was live. Millions watched from around the country. Marcus sat up, the brown trench coat draped over his shoulders like armor. His bandaged arm rested gently on the blankets. Flashbulbs popped. Reporters called his name. Hands shot up with questions. He didn't speak until the room fell silent. Then, with a steady hand, Marcus lifted the voice recorder. "My name is Dr. Marcus Hill," he said softly, but the quiet power in his voice filled the room. 2 days ago, I was shot and nearly killed for exposing corruption in Oakwood Parish. He pressed play. The voices on the recording poured out like poison. The mayor is discussing kickbacks. Chief Monroe ordered illegal surveillance. Developers plotting which black families to target. Officers laughing about forged eviction notices. Threats against homeowners. Threats against children. Threats against Marcus. Gasps rippled through the room. Reporters leaned forward. Phones lit up. Within minutes, the story went national. Federal agents swarmed City Hall and the police department. Boxes of evidence were carried out. Computers seized. Officials led away in handcuffs, their faces pale with shock. Out in Oakwood Crossing, people stepped onto their porches, watching history unfold. Some cried, some prayed, some hugged their children tightly, some whispered, "Finally, finally." Marcus watched from his hospital room as the live coverage played on the TV. He saw the mayor being pushed into a car. The chief was dragged out in cuffs. Mercer and Hanley were shouting as agents forced them into the back of a cruiser. A weight lifted from his chest. Justice wasn't complete, but it had begun. He closed his eyes. For the first time in decades, Oakwood Crossing had a fighting chance. The world re-entered Noah Carter's awareness as a violent blur of white light and aching bone. For a moment, he thought he was still lying in that shed behind someone's backyard, bleeding into the dirt while men hunted him like prey. But then a sharp, antiseptic smell filled his nose. A monitor beeped rhythmically somewhere near his left ear. Sunlight washed through a large hospital window, softened by pale blue curtains. When Noah tried to lift his arm, something tugged hard. He looked down. A metal cuff locked his wrist to the bed. Another shackle wound around the frame on the opposite side. His breath hitched, not from fear, though it lurked under his ribs like a coiled snake, but from the realization of how close he'd come to never waking at all. Two FBI agents stood guard by the door, backs rigid, hands resting on their holsters. These were not the corrupt local deputies who had chased him through Oakwood Crossing's dark streets. These were federal agents sent by the Bureau itself, his own agency, his own people. But the fact that they stood guard over him instead of protecting him felt like a bruise beneath his skin. He swallowed hard. Then a familiar voice cut through the sterile air. "You're awake." Noah turned his head, too quickly, and pain radiated through his neck. But the sight waiting for him eased some of the tension that had tightened into his bones. Lisa Raymond sat beside the bed in the uncomfortable vinyl visitor's chair, her hands clasped so tightly around a paper cup that its edges were crushed inward. Her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, but the flicker of relief there made Noah's chest loosen. "How long?" he rasped. She leaned in, brushing back a curl of hair that had escaped from her bun. 2 days. You were in and out. Lost more blood than the doctors were comfortable with." She hesitated. "Honestly, there were moments we weren't sure you were coming back." Noah nodded slowly. "I'm here." "Yes," she said softly. "But the first thing the mayor did was try to have you arrested from your hospital bed." That figured. The police chief and the mayor were clawing at their last scraps of authority, desperate to spin the narrative before the truth consumed them. Noah could almost imagine them pacing in their offices, phones pressed to their ears, scrambling to declare him a menace, a fraud, a liar, anything to distract from what he had uncovered. But it was too late for them. "What's the situation?" he asked quietly. Lisa's jaw tightened. She leaned forward and slipped something under his pillow so discreetly that the agents by the door didn't even glance up. "A recording," she whispered. "Confessions, phone calls. 3 officers are flipping on Dalton, a city clerk admitting to forging documents for 15 years. Everything we need to finish this." "No court order?" Noah asked. "There's a gag order now," she said bitterly. "They filed it last night. They're trying to block anything that exposes what they did." Noah let out a humorless breath. "And you're telling me this because—" She met his eyes. "They can't block a live broadcast." For a long second, silence stretched between them, sharp, loaded, and pulsing with possibility. A nurse walked in and froze at the sight of Noah awake. In seconds, medical staff were adjusting monitors, checking his vitals, and rushing to notify the attending physician. The FBI agent stepped forward. "Director Carter," one of them said, "the Bureau has instructed us to ensure your safety and prevent any unauthorized contact with media or outside personnel. Until there is an official debrief, Noah lifted his uninjured arm. "Get the press." The agent blinked. "Sir?" "Get the press," Noah repeated, voice unwavering, despite the dryness in his throat. "Now." The other agent hesitated. "Sir, with all due respect, your condition—" "I don't care about my condition." Noah's voice cut through the room like a blade. "People in Oakwood Crossing put their lives on the line for the truth. I will not let them be silenced." A silence so tense it seemed to thicken the air. Then the agents exchanged a look, murmured into their earpieces, and stepped into the hallway. Within minutes, the small hospital room transformed into the epicenter of a national earthquake. Cameras piled through the doorway. Reporters pressed in shoulder to shoulder. Lights blazed hot and bright. A microphone cluster rose like a metal forest around Noah's bed. Outside the window, a growing crowd gathered in the parking lot. Local residents, national news crews, and dozens of people from Oakwood Crossing who had come to see justice finally break like dawn. Noah adjusted himself upright despite the stabbing pain in his ribs. He asked a nurse for his brown trench coat, the one that had been torn, bloodied, and nearly ruined the night he was hunted across backyards, and she draped it over his shoulders like armor. Perfect. Exactly what he needed. Lisa stood just outside the camera frame, her presence a quiet anchor. Noah reached under his pillow and clicked the recorder on. A voice crackled through the speakers. The mayor, laughing, explaining how to push black families off their land so developers could buy it cheaply. Another voice, Chief Dalton, ordering forged documents, calling certain residents targets, instructing officers to lean hard until they leave. Noah didn't watch the reporters as their eyes widened, pens scrambled across notepads and hands flew toward microphones. He didn't watch the nurses gather at the edges of the room, hands covering their mouths. He didn't even watch the FBI agents, whose faces shifted from shock to fury to grim understanding. He watched the window, watched as people outside drew closer, hands over their hearts, tears streaking down faces that had carried too many years of fear. When the recordings finished, Noah spoke. "This," he said quietly, "is what happens in America when those in power believe no one is watching." Cameras clicked. This is what happens when police and politicians treat black communities as obstacles, not citizens. When the badge becomes a weapon instead of a shield. He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle like dust. But Oakwood Crossing did not stay silent. His voice thickened, but he pushed through it. You refused to bow. You recorded. You documented. You fought. And now the world will see what you already knew. Reporters shouted questions all at once. Noah, are you saying? Director Carter, will the FBI? Sir, what charges? He raised a hand. In the last 24 hours, federal agents have executed warrants across this town. Offices searched, servers seized, records copied. The reporters fell still. The mayor is in custody, Noah said. The police chief is in custody. Officers Rickman and Halley are in custody, and more are being taken into custody as we speak. Gasps filled the room. Lisa's hand flew to her mouth. Outside, someone sobbed openly. This isn't the end, Noah continued. This is the beginning of rebuilding what they tried to destroy. Homes will be restored, land returned. Every family wronged will receive justice. His voice softened. And Oakwood Crossing will never be the same again. The press conference streamed live across every national network, every news app, every social media feed. In cities across the country, people watched in disbelief as Noah Carter dismantled an entire corrupt system from a hospital bed. While cameras rolled, FBI tactical teams marched into the Oakwood Crossing police station, pulling boxes of files and corrupt officers into black SUVs. City Hall employees were lined up as investigators seized computers, hard drives, and forged records. In the neighborhoods, families stepped onto porches in tears, some holding hands, others embracing as if afraid this moment might dissolve before their eyes. Inside the hospital room, the adrenaline finally began to drain from Noah's body. His head throbbed, his arm burned, his lungs felt raw. But he kept sitting upright until the last camera lowered, until the last microphone retreated, until the last reporter stepped away. Only then did Noah let himself sink back into the pillows. Lisa leaned close. You did it, she whispered. No, he corrected softly, voice weary but steady. We did. As the sun dipped into the late afternoon, painting the sky in streaks of deep gold and violet, news footage played on the hospital television. The mayor walked out in handcuffs. The chief followed, face gray with defeat. Behind them, officers lined up with their hands behind their backs. And then, a shot of the Oakwood Crossing neighborhood, families cheering, cars honking, people lifting signs. Our homes matter. Justice at last, we survived them. We won. Noah felt something inside him uncoil, a tension he'd carried for decades, one that had grown heavier with every act of injustice he'd witnessed in his career. For the first time in a long time, he let his eyes close. Not because he was weak, not because the fight was done, but because for a single fragile moment, he finally felt safe. And outside the hospital, Oakwood Crossing began to breathe again. The fear was lifting. The truth was spreading. And the storm the corrupt authorities thought they controlled was now a wildfire burning clean through their empire. Tomorrow there would be more battles, more hearings, more truths to uncover, more wounds to heal. But for tonight, justice had taken its first breath, and it was loud. The first morning Noah Carter stepped back onto his porch without pain, shooting through his body felt unreal, like a memory borrowed from someone else's life. The sun had barely risen, yet the entire neighborhood of Oakwood Crossing was already awake. The air buzzed with soft music drifting from speakers at the far end of the street. The smell of hickory and barbecue sauce rising from charcoal grills, and the sound of children whooping with unrestrained joy. For the first time in years, Oakwood Crossing was alive. Noah leaned against the porch post, steadying himself as a light wind brushed against the bandage beneath his shirt. His brown trench coat, freshly cleaned but still bearing faint scars of what he'd survived, hung over the railing like a silent witness. He breathed in, slowly, a breath without dread. He hadn't realized how long it had been since he'd felt that. Across the street, Miss Ruth sat on her porch swing, surrounded by a cluster of wide-eyed children listening intently as she recounted stories of Oakwood Crossing's past. The good, the prideful, the triumphant parts. Stories that had once been overshadowed by fear. When she caught Noah's eye, she waved him over. "Come on, baby boy," she called, even though Noah was in his 50s. "These kids need to hear from you too." Noah chuckled and crossed the street slowly, exchanging handshakes, long embraces, and small, quiet moments of gratitude with neighbors as he passed. A group of teenagers was arranging microphones and speakers near the cul-de-sac for the evening's performances. Their shirts read, "Oakwood Crossing Youth Leadership Program, Lisa's newest initiative, funded by the restitution money and matched with federal grants in that OWA had pushed through." "Director Carter," a voice called. Tyler rushed up, a camera hanging from his neck and a badge from a nationally recognized news network resting proudly against his chest. "Mind if I grab a few more clips for the follow-up piece?" he asked, slightly breathless. "America can't get enough of what's happening here." "As long as you show the whole story," Noah said warmly, gesturing to the families setting up folding chairs and food tables. "Not just my part." Tyler grinned as he lifted the camera to his eye. "I wouldn't dare leave any of this out." He moved through the gathering crowd, filming everything. An elderly couple slow dancing to a Marvin Gaye song, playing softly from a neighbor's stereo. Children learning double Dutch from their grandmothers. Men painting signs for the new community garden. Women carrying trays of cornbread, collard greens, sweet potatoes, and peach cobbler to long wooden tables covered in checkered cloth. "Smells like heaven out here," Noah murmured. Miss Ruth slapped a pot holder against her hip. "It ain't heaven yet," she said, "but it's a whole lot closer than it was." Noah knelt beside the group of children clustered at her feet. One boy, no older than 8, raised his hand. "Is it true you fought off bad guys with your bare hands?" he asked, eyes huge with awe. The other kids leaned in. Noah smiled. "I did what I had to do to protect myself in this town. But you know who the real heroes are?" "Who?" Several voices chimed. He placed his hand gently on Miss Ruth's shoulder. "The ones who never gave up hope. The ones who kept watch. The ones who spoke up when speaking up was dangerous." Miss Ruth flushed, batting at his arm. "Now stop that. You're going to make an old woman cry." "I'm not trying to make you cry," Noah said softly. "I'm trying to make sure these kids know what strength looks like." Her eyes glistened. Music shifted across the street, turning into a lively gospel tune. People clapped to the rhythm as they walked toward the main tables. Noah could hear laughter everywhere. Warm, unrestrained laughter that felt like sunlight after months of storm clouds. He noticed Lisa near the community center boundaries, directing volunteers as they handed out newly restored property deeds to families who had been displaced. Her council badge gleamed in the sunlight, brand new after the emergency vote reinstated her and placed her at the helm of community rebuilding. When she spotted him, she raised a stack of papers triumphantly. "The first 50 families are officially home," she announced, tears shining in her eyes. Cheers erupted across the block. Parents hugged their children. Couples clung to each other. Neighbors who had once kept silent now stood tall. One woman, whose home had been seized in the dead of night 5 years earlier, held her return papers to her chest, shaking as if afraid the wind might take them away. When Noah stepped toward her, she reached out with trembling hands. "I didn't think I'd ever see this day," she whispered. "I truly didn't." "You deserve this," Noah replied. "You always did." A wave of emotion threatened to break his composure, but he held it steady, not out of pride, but out of reverence. This moment was sacred. Every returned deed, every rebuilt home, every smiling child was a prayer answered. Lisa approached Noah with another set of papers. "This," she said, "is something we've all been working toward." She lifted the documents and read aloud. "The Carter Fellowship for Future Leaders." Noah blinked. Lisa smiled. "Every year, 10 students from Oakwood Crossing will receive full college scholarships, mentorship opportunities, and career development support." Gasps rippled across the crowd. Teenagers stood straighter. Parents clasped each other. "You named it after me?" Noah asked, voice rougher than he intended. "Of course," she replied. "You showed this town that bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's patient. Sometimes it's quiet. But it always matters." Noah swallowed hard, unable to speak for a moment. "Thank you," he finally whispered. "But this fellowship belongs to the people who live here." "And it does," Lisa said. "But you're part of this community, Noah. Maybe more than anyone." Someone turned up the music, and the beat of an old soul anthem rolled through the neighborhood. Miss Ruth grabbed Noah's arm. "Come on now," she said. "We're doing the electric slide." "Miss Ruth, I'm injured," Noah protested, laughing. "You ain't injured enough to skip out on this." And so, bandaged arm and all, Noah found himself at the center of the crowd, dancing, or at least attempting to, as children cheered and adults laughed, and Miss Ruth declared herself the undisputed slide champion. Late in the afternoon, the sun softened into warm amber. Rows of tables were filled with plates of food and half-finished drinks. The sounds of grilling, conversation, and children playing blended into a gentle hum that wrapped itself around the entire block. Nobody was looking over their shoulder. Nobody whispered out of fear. Nobody felt the cloak of oppression hanging over their roof anymore. At sunset, Lisa stepped onto a small makeshift stage beneath a banner, stretched between two trees. "Welcome home, Oakwood Crossing." "Everyone," she called, her voice steady and strong, "I want to introduce someone who has changed the course of our town's history." She gestured for Noah to join her. The crowd fell silent as he climbed the few wooden steps. People wiped tears. Parents lifted children onto their shoulders. Elderly residents held each other's hands. Lisa placed a large golden key in Noah's hand. "This used to symbolize power held by the few," she said. "Today it symbolizes power returned to the community." Noah held the key up, and the crowd erupted into applause. Camera flashes lit the moment like stars. But Noah wasn't thinking about cameras or headlines or the national importance of what had happened here. He was thinking about Oakwood Crossing, about Miss Ruth, about Tyler, about Lisa, about every family crushed by a system designed to erase them, about every voice that had been silenced, until now. He lowered the key and spoke. This town didn't need saving. It needed someone to listen, someone to believe it was worth fighting for. And every one of you proved that you were. A hush fell over the crowd. You stood together. You told the truth. You never backed down. And because of that, Oakwood Crossing didn't just survive. It rose. Cheers swelled again, breaking like a wave across the block. As the sky turned dark purple and the first stars appeared, Noah returned to his porch. His trench coat hung on the railing. His neighbors laughed and danced beneath string lights. Children zoomed past on bicycles decorated with ribbons. The wounds, he knew, would take time to fully heal. But healing was happening. Right here. Right now. Oakwood Crossing was no longer a place of whispered fear. It was a community reclaiming its voice. A family rebuilding itself, a home being rewritten. Noah leaned back in his chair, letting the warm night settle around him. Justice, he realized, didn't end with an arrest, or a courtroom, or a news headline. Justice was this: the laughter, the healing, the restoration, the peace returning to a people who had waited far too long for it. For the first time in decades, Noah Carter felt whole, and Oakwood Crossing, bruised but unbroken, stepped into its new future with hope burning bright. Some stories end when the villains are arrested, but this one won't leave you. Because long after the camera turns off, the truth stays with you. The injustice, the fear, the courage it takes for a community to rise together when the system is designed to break them apart. We watched a man nearly lose his life because he dared return home. We watched a town try to silence him, only to watch themselves fall under the weight of their own corruption. And we watched a community stand back up, stronger than the people who tried to destroy it. If this story made you feel something, anger, hope, heartbreak, pride, don't let that feeling fade. Subscribe to Racist Reality right now. Every week, we expose the stories that others try to bury. Stories of racism, abuse of power, and the courage it takes to fight back. Stories that remind us that justice doesn't happen by accident. And when you're done here, visit the Racist Reality channel to watch more videos just like this one. Stories that will leave you thinking, feeling, and understanding the truth in a deeper way. Because the reality is this: no one changes the world by looking away. So subscribe, watch more, learn more, stand with those who refuse to be silent. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.